Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're tuning into. Welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon. Guys and girls, you know the drill. I am a retired New York City police detective and a 9/11 World Trade Center first responder. If you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, so you'll get all things DutyRon when I go live or upload another video. Hey, today I didn't have a chance to jump on this yesterday because we had a busy schedule, work and Forensic Friday. On Friday in court, Muskegon County, Shanda Vander Ark, guilty of all charges, and rightfully so. This is a sick demon. This is an evil monster who tortured her own flesh and blood for a good 6 months that we know of. And you know what? This guilty verdict came in an hour and 9 minutes. The jury deliberated for 1 hour and 9 minutes. I thought in my mind that it was definitely going to come out on the same day, that they were not going to need much time. And guess what, folks? They didn't need much time. But before I jump into this, I want to say a special thank you to you, the Patreon supporters, the channel members, the subscribers, the replay viewers, the folks who leave us kind comments down below in the comment section. You're what makes this a great place, and we give thanks and praise to you guys. It's without you, the audience and the people who watch us, we would be nothing. We broke the 191,000 subscriber mark, and that's all because of you guys. So I thank you guys for having the faith in watching Ed Wallace and myself as we cover these difficult cases. So let's go right into it and take a listen from Court TV. And this is going to be, ladies and gentlemen, the first time that we've seen photographs of Timothy Ferguson, the victim, 15 years young, a young teenager who was tortured by his mom. You're going to see a childhood photo. I don't know how old he is here, but we'll take a peek at it, and they're going to show it here for the very first time. Again, the sentencing will come, I believe, shortly. I'm not sure the exact date, but it is coming in 2024.
Shanda Vander Ark has quickly become one of the most notorious accused child killers in the history of Court TV. Shanda had a son named Timothy with her ex-husband. Timothy had special needs. When they were living in Oklahoma, Shanda got into trouble with child services and was not supposed to be caring for Timothy. So Timothy's father took custody. But when he could not care for Timothy anymore, Shanda took him in and moved to Michigan. That's where things went really bad. Prosecutors say 15-year-old Timothy was starved to death, weighing just 69 pounds when he stopped breathing. Before he died, Timothy's brother sent Shanda a picture showing how emaciated Timothy was and texted her that they needed to feed him. That photograph was so graphic, the judge did not publicly display it in the courtroom. Instead, the jury passed the photo around. Then during her cross-examination, the prosecutor showed that photo to Shanda. And that's when this happened.
This is hours before he dies, right? Yes, sir. You look like that when you put him in the bathtub?
You can say what you want. I want to stop that right there. How many of you in the chat, and this is where we all get to engage and do this together, how many of you in the chat felt that that was her really throwing up at seeing those pictures? She was with him day in and day out. She dragged him in and out of that room the day he died. She knew exactly what he looked like. That's a bunch of hogwash. I'm hogwashing it right there, and I'm putting a...
Oh, hell no.
That is fake crocodile tears and vomiting. That is her right up until the last second trying to be an actress. And kudos to this prosecutor. This was the best part of this trial right here. You watched hours and hours. I personally watched hours and hours of this trial. Some days, you know, it only lasted 3 days. 3 days, they wrapped it up, day one and day two, but it was hours and hours of watching this. And this this was the best move that he made right there, along with a whole bunch of other things of how he presented the case. And kudos to the prosecutor. But let's watch it again.
Right? Yes, sir. You look like that when you put him in the bathtub?
You can say what you want about that reaction. Was it real? Was it feigned? I don't know. But that picture that she saw,
I know.
the photographs of that little boy, 15 years old, 69 pounds, Timothy Ferguson, that's what this story was about. A picture tells 1,000 words. This told more than 1,000. It told the story of the suffering of this young man and how his final days were. At the hands of his own mother and his brother, his own family. That's what they did. She didn't want to look at it. The judge didn't show it publicly in the courtroom. The jury got to see it because it's evidence in the case. I haven't seen it. But right now, in my hands, that photograph of Timothy. I haven't seen it yet. My producers got it for me. I'm going to take a look at it. And I'm going to describe to you what I can. And by you understanding my reaction to seeing this, I think it's the best way I can describe to you what's going on here. Now, for those of you who watched the trial, obviously, the jury got the message. It was a message that was clear. But I'm going to take a look at this. I think these photos are important, and we can't show them on the air. It happens from time to time in a lot of the trials.
I hope nobody ever gets those photos and shows those. I'll say this is the first time I'm actually watching this in its entirety, and I hope to God nobody gets those photos and shows them on the internet, because they don't need to be shown on the internet. That would be the ultimate disgusting thing to do.
Trials we cover, some of the evidence is too graphic. It's happened in many cases. It happened when I was down in Orange County, Florida. Little picture of Kaylee Marie that we couldn't show on the air. I saw it. That's why that story has never left me. And now I'm going to take a look at Timothy Ferguson for the first time. Every night at the end of the show, I say, don't forget to hug the kids. And I say that because of the responsibility we have as adults, as parents. But my goodness, the responsibilities that an actual parent has for their own child, to see this happening in real time in your own home and doing nothing to stop that from happening and making it happen. It's not like he's suffering from some disease and he's like a cancer patient and he's withering. That's not it. She did that to him. She did that to him.
Sickening.
I'm not going to look at it again. But what I do want to show you right now, let's remember this photo, because this is a real child, a real spirit, a real soul. You look in his eyes, no different than any other little child.
I would have to guess that he's right around 5 or 6, maybe. I'm not great at this with the guessing, but he's a young child there. Innocent, sweet, just so sad and so sickening on so many different levels. There was a chat message that I highlighted. Someone said that they lost their child at a very young age and they would give anything to have their child back. This woman took her own flesh and blood, tortured him, deprived him of food, water, and the basics, and thought that it was okay. Horrifying. Horrifying. And this stuff, unfortunately, is happening as we speak to some other small little victim. And I always say, when Ed and I are live, the vulnerable, the elderly, the mentally incapacitated, the people who need us the most, they're the most vulnerable, and she took advantage of that. She was an attorney, never mind working in courts. She took and passed the bar. She was gloating about it on the stand. She was gloating about it and saying, I passed it on the first try, and how she was top of her class. This kind of stuff just makes my blood boil. It makes me sick. But this is what we're dealing with. This is the evil that's out there. Vinny goes on to interview the lead prosecutor in this case, and he did a fantastic job. Matt's been with the Muskegon County Prosecutor's Office as the lead attorney in the DA's office for 21 years. And he did a fantastic job. This interview he does with him, the audio is a little wonky. It's on his end, on the attorney's end. But Vinny interviews the prosecutor, and just take the audio part and put it aside. It's like lots of weird noises happening in the audio, but it's a good interview, and I want you guys to listen to it. But you could see that Vinnie Politan is visibly shaken by what he saw in that photo. And for her to put on that show in court of throwing up, she knew. She saw him every day. And I'm going to go on in this live stream and show you what that hot sauce that she was feeding him can do to a grown adult. I have, there's many people who review these hot sauces, and I picked out one of this particular kind, and you're going to see two grown men ingest just a teaspoon of this hot sauce, and you're going to see what happened to them. Let me know in the chat if you want to see that. I mean, I watched it, and it just shocked me. If you want to see it, put a 1 in the chat. If you don't want to see it, put a 2, and I'll base it on your feedback, because I want to show you what you want to see. But as a detective, I had to see this for myself. I had to do a bit of an investigation to see what this is that she was instructing Paul to feed his brother Timothy on a daily basis on bread. And then she even suggested he poured it on his genitals. That's disgusting. That is sick. That is evil. She is a demon.
All of our kids have problems, have issues, but our jobs as parents is to take care of them and to work through that with them to make their journey and their lives better, not to end their lives. He deserved a lot better, a whole lot better. And today the jury agreed as they rendered their verdict.
People of the state of Michigan versus Shanda Vander Ark, count 1, charging open murder involving the death of Timothy Ferguson. We find her guilty of first-degree felony murder. Count 2, first-degree child abuse. We find her guilty of first-degree child abuse.
There she is inside the courtroom, but she wasn't there for the verdict. She didn't show up today. We're going to talk about that this hour. Didn't even show up all day long inside the courtroom. Didn't even finish answering the questions that the jurors had. Now, in a trial, and you see it on court TV all the time, you know, there's two sides, and everyone in our system gets a defense attorney. But they're human also. They have a job to do, and thank goodness that they do it, because they keep the system honest, they make our system work. And I know sometimes we get frustrated, we get angry with the arguments that they make, the motions they make, the things they say, the way they cross-examine people, the way they talk about victims. I get all that. I'm with you on that. You know, I'm there as you are. but they're human. And Frederick Johnson, who represented the child killer, spoke with Court TV, Michael Ayala, Judge Ashley earlier today. And I think this gives you an idea of the impact a case like this can have. And it's not just, it's everyone that this prosecutor joining us tonight, Chief Trial Attorney from Muskegon County Prosecutor's Office, prosecuted this case. Matt Roberts is with us. Matt, great to see you tonight. Give me where you are going through a case like this, you know, and when you prosecute a case, I mean, you dive deep. You've got to live it. Where are you emotionally right now?
Well, thank you for having me, Vinny. I appreciate it. You know, you really hit it there. Emotionally, this is, and I'd echo what Mr. Johnson said there in that clip. I've been doing this for 22 years, and this is the most difficult case that I've ever had from an emotional standpoint. And I can tell you that when that verdict was read, there was just a sense of relief, a sense of just that relief washing over. I know the entire team, my trial partner, Kristen Gilmore, who I could not have done this without, and Lieutenant Duxima, who was right there with me from the Norton Shores Police Department, and the detective.
Let me again just say this for the folks who are just joining. The audio is kind of a little off and wonky on this. I don't know if it's like the audio is getting compressed, and it's on his side, I mean. So Matt Roberts is talking through his audio device, and it seems to be some kind of a bad connection, but still, let's listen to what he had to say. He says a lot here, and Vinny asks some really great questions. He even asks him about the son, Paul, what he thinks is going to happen with him. And again, the district attorney's office, him, Matt Roberts, made a deal with Paul to be a witness for the prosecution against his mother, and he testified against her. So he cooperated for the prosecution, and he said it in open court. The district attorney said, we made a deal with him, a plea. You know, there's going to be some type of plea bargain of some sort. So he may or may not get lesser of a sentence. So let's see what happens.
We all had a moment there afterwards. There was a lot of tears. There was a lot of emotion, but it was great to get it to this point. But we can never lose sight of the fact of why we're here, and that a young man lost his life just senselessly to get us to this point.
So let's go back a little bit. As you're first getting this case and going through and revealing and getting the evidence and going through it, what's going through your mind as you're digging through, figuring out exactly what happened and how it all happened?
Well, first and foremost, it was the hard work of the Norton Shores Police Department and the detectives involved here in bringing it to us. I actually first became aware of what was happening in the case when a good friend of mine called me. She actually conducted the interview of the minor child, the child that we referred to as G, called me up the night this had happened and said, you just won't believe the things that I've just heard from this child. And she told me the details, the gruesome details. And I didn't believe it. I said, this just can't possibly be true. And then as things unfolded that next day, and talking to the medical examiner and talking to the detectives and deciding to make a charging decision here, it was all true. And frankly, that was just the tip of the iceberg. And as we prepared this case moving forward, each time we thought we had reached the bottom, if you will, like that there was it could not get any worse. The behavior here, the conduct just couldn't get any worse. It did. And it was like that all the way up to trial and preparing it. So it was just gut punch after gut punch as we were doing this. But we never lost sight of what was important here, and that was to try to get the justice we could for Timothy, because he had become essentially a prisoner in his own home, and there was nobody that could speak out for him. There was nobody that could say, what's happening to this child isn't right, because of the efforts of his mother, and in part the efforts of his brother.
How long was Timothy tortured for? What are you gathering from your investigation?
As near as we can tell, the first real reference to what is happening happens in February.
These are crime scene photos that we're looking at, and this is the extreme regret hot sauce that he was forced to ingest. The very small amounts of time that he was able to consume anything, it was always with this torturous, horrific hot sauce that even any strong adult would not be able to take on a regular basis. And this was the diet that he was fed. It consisted of bread and this. And a lot of times we heard in the testimony that it was straight hot sauce. Straight. Sickening.
Early February. That's approximately a month or so after the stroke that unfortunately caused the minor child G's father to be out of the home, unable to be in the home, leaving the defendant with the three boys in the home. And all we can piece together really is through the text messages primarily. And we went back and poured over those text messages. Kristen and I split those up and just went through them line by line looking for it. And we started to identify in early February references to locking up the food, references to the restraints, references to first the zip ties and then later the cuffs. So it looks like early February. I wish I could say that I don't think Timothy was suffering all that time, but unfortunately I do. I think that's really when it started. And as the investigation progressed, it was obvious that she had gone to such great lengths to make sure that Timothy was not seen by anyone. He was homeschooled.
He couldn't be seen by anybody because if Timothy was in the public eye, she would have been caught a long time before this. She kept him, as you see, handcuffs. I stopped it with these handcuffs. These are leg shackles. And this is what we use on prisoners when we transport them. We put those on each ankle. Those are shackles, leg irons. They were using zip ties. They were forcing him to keep his arms up in the air, lay on a certain side so she could see him under camera surveillance. She made him sit up against the wall and squat. Agati, you said it well. Sadistic behavior. Despicable. Let's listen to what the district attorney says here, because he goes on to ask him about the brother and about his charges that are forthcoming. He's going to have a separate trial.
Never was enrolled in school. He never went to a doctor. He was not even allowed outside. The only time he was outside was for punishments. And it was in the backyard. And frankly, the neighbors, the folks in the neighborhood didn't even know that there was, knew about the older child, knew about the younger child, didn't even know that Timothy existed.
She was working as a law clerk, right? I mean, so what did people who were interacting with her outside of that home have to say about her? Did you get a picture of what sort of life she was leading there? And was there anything about that would make anyone think that there could potentially be something of the level of that darkness happening in her world?
Well, nothing that was uncovered during the investigation suggests that any of the neighbors had any idea what was taking place. Again, the only other adult that had been in the home, Adam Vander Ark, who tragically passed away earlier this year, was, because of the stroke, was out of the home, so he was not able to see what was taking place. Timothy's biological father and stepmother actually lived in Florida.
So he said her husband, who had a stroke, passed away earlier this year. So once he had that stroke and was out of the house is when he estimates that the torture really ramped up once her husband suffered that stroke in the Norton Shores home and never returned. That's when she took it upon herself to ramp up the torture to Timothy. And her son, Paul, who's 20, He's charged with child abuse in the first degree, which if you're convicted of that in the state of Michigan, you could face life in prison. So let's listen to what else he has to say here.
So they were not able to see things, and the defendant went to some great lengths, as I indicated before, to make sure that even the grandmother, even Adam's parents, when they tried to come and see G, that they were not allowed into the home, to the extent that she was literally tracking them on their phones and trying to make sure that she beat them to her house and made sure that G would be outside to be picked up, so nobody would come into the home. I personally actually met her when she was working in her capacity as a clerk for one of our circuit court judges the year before this happened. And
he met her a year before this happened. He met Shanda in court. How freaky is that? I mean, he actually met her in his personal, in his day-to-day in the courthouse.
He would come into the home. I personally actually met her when she was working in her capacity as a clerk for one of our circuit court judges the year before this happened. And, certainly there was nothing to indicate at that time that anything like this was taking place. I'd like to think that it wasn't happening at that time, because that was in summer of 2021. And that would have been right about the time that Timothy first came to live with her, and Adam was still in the home at that time. So it's just another one of those cases where people say, well, I never would have seen this from I never would have expected this from this person, but here we are in this. All
right, just so you know, Dawn Marie, you must have just came in. I said it about 3 or 4 times already, and I'm just saying it for everybody else too, but thanks for bringing it up. It's the district attorney, the guest that Vinny has on. He's having problems with his audio. Again, I wanted everyone to overlook the audio part, because what he's saying is extremely, extremely valuable for us to understand the inner workings and what happened in this case and where the failures came. And the only reason the police got called there is because on the morning of July 6th of 2022, Timothy Ferguson was unresponsive. He died in the basement in that closet, that small room that they refer to, because of the 15 or 14-hour ice bath that he was in, and the lack of nutrition, and everything that she instructed Paul and that she did to poor Timothy Ferguson in the months leading up to his death. And she kept, as you just heard him say, she kept everybody out of that house so they didn't see him, because she knew. And that's why when we see her throw up in court, that fake crocodile tears and throw up and panic attacks, it's all bullshit, because she knew from seeing him every day, she made an effort to keep him out of the public eye, to keep him away from the family, to keep him away from neighbors. Because if anybody saw him, if anybody saw Timothy Ferguson, they would have immediately called the police. They would have immediately done something. But I also question why, if I don't see my niece or nephew and I keep going somewhere and they don't let nobody, if my sister doesn't let me see my niece or my nephew, I'm now going to question that if it happens over a long period of time. I don't know how these people or anybody didn't question it, but who am I to judge? I don't know what the circumstances were. None of us do.
Prison that Timothy was kept in his home.
Now, there was so much evidence, including some videos that the jury didn't necessarily see. But you did a masterful job, your team, in presenting this case. That moment where you're cross-examining her and you put the photos in front of her, what did you think of that moment, and what did you think of her reaction?
Well, to be blunt, it seemed orchestrated, and I don't mean to suggest that Mr. Johnson or anyone on our team had a hand in that. I have nothing but the utmost respect for Mr. Johnson and his office, and as you indicated here at the beginning of the segment, that they have a job to do, and Fred's team does it, and Fred does it admirably.
Hey, Ed, I just saw that comment and I highlighted it. Vinny asks him about that. So it's funny that Ed Wallace said that, because I know that from skipping through this video, I didn't watch it in full, but Vinny Politan asks him about the appeal process, and it's interesting what he says.
And he did so in this case, but it seemed just orchestrated on her part. I am convinced that she had seen those photographs before. So to have a reaction to like that, it just didn't strike me as genuine. I believe that she had seen the photographs the week before. We had a hearing in front of the judge to determine whether or not the photographs were going to be allowed and under what circumstances. And they were displayed at that point. And she certainly did not appear to have that reaction. But
who in the chat feels that this evil demon, Vander Ark, is going to receive jailhouse justice? I'm just curious, and I'm not doing this to rile everybody up. Put a 1 in the chat if you feel she's going to get jailhouse justice, because we know prison inmates do not like child killers. Put a 2 if you feel that she's going to be protected in protective custody. We know she's going to be in PC for a little while, but she can't spend the rest of her life in protective custody. I see a lot of 1s in the chat. I definitely, Allison BD says definitely a 1. Let It Be Summer says 1. Sonia says 1. Mr. and Mrs. James MD says 1. Sweet One is throwing in a 2. I love it. Sweet One's always challenging us. I love it. Larson's mom. You know, look, I'm confident that, you know, they're going to do the best that they can. I'm talking about the corrections, because we had Anthony Ganji on from Tier Talk, and he's a corrections expert, and he tells us that they do the best job that they can to try to maintain command and custody of inmates. And in prisons where she's going to be, she's in jail. When someone's in prison, they do the best that they can, but they're only human beings. And look, we have several high-profile inmates, including the former police officer Derek Chauvin, who was in protective custody for the murder of George Floyd, stabbed 22 times. So there you go. Oh, wait, somebody put that in the chat. There we go. Angela Houston. No offense, but look how long it took for someone to get to Derek Chauvin. There you go. All right, let's let it roll. Thank you for that comment.
I was walking away from her. She started to have that reaction, and I did not, once she started to whatever, dry heave or vomit or whatever it is that she did, I did not go up there. I certainly respected whatever level of privacy she was due at that point, but it felt rehearsed. It really did.
I was questioning it myself last night, and many times we see crocodile tears. This is the first crocodile heave, I think, in the history of court TV.
Crocodile heave.
Maybe it's a new trend. We'll see. Let me ask you this.
Gnarly!
In these cases where the victim is the child and a parent is on trial for the murder, so many times it's so heartbreaking that there's no one in the courtroom for the victim. And prosecutors and investigators,
he asked a great
I know,
question,
are so passionate, and you all are there. Was there anyone from outside of your team that was there for Timothy inside that courtroom?
There was. It was actually the stepmom who was actually able to make it up here from Florida, came up here, and she was also able to see Paul, the co-defendant in this case, briefly have a jail visit with him while she was up there. So it felt like there was at least somebody there that was there for Timothy. But quite frankly, anybody that's even touched even remotely this case has felt an affinity for it and an affinity for doing what was right for
Rassler's mom. 15 years young, Timothy. And he was autistic on the spectrum, as described in court, high-functioning autism. But we also heard that he was, it was difficult for him to verbalize, and a lot of different things that he was stricken with. So she preyed on her flesh and blood and the most vulnerable. And that was what makes her a demon in my mind, an evil, sick demon.
For Timothy, and we had a lot of people in the courtroom. There were a lot of folks from my office. There was a lot of folks from Fred's office that were there. There were a lot of folks just off the street who had taken an interest in the case and felt like they needed to do the right thing. But again, in part primarily really because of the actions of the defendant and her efforts to just keep him isolated and keep him away from people. It was hard to get somebody there for him, but there were people there, and at the end of the day, we speak for the victims. We speak for those that can't speak for themselves anymore, and I'm proud to do that every day with the men and women at the Muskegon County Prosecutor's Office.
Yeah, and I always point this out to folks because people don't realize it. You know, when we have folks like you dedicate years and years in a career to prosecuting criminals, I remind everyone that you could make a whole lot more money going out into private practice, whether you're doing works for corporations, even criminal defendants, if that would ever be a choice.
And he's right.
But we need people like you who dedicate their careers to this. And it's not just guys like me who go in for a few years and then leave. You can't prosecute cases like this with young rookie prosecutors. You need experienced, dedicated professionals, and I hope and I'm sure the folks in Muskegon County understand that. But I always like to remind people who are watching, because sometimes they forget, because you can make a lot of money. A great trial attorney like this can make a lot of money, folks. He does okay, but I mean, there's a level of sacrifice and true service in what you're doing. Let me ask you about Paul.
Here it is. Here
Two things. What did you think?
So this is the son, Paul, 20 years old, who we saw on the stand day one in this trial. And Paul testified that he received these text messages instructing him to, to pretty much carry out the instructions of his mother. And while Paul was in court testifying in shackles and handcuffs, he kept looking over at his mother, and he was looking at his mother because he looked like she was still controlling his mind. I don't know if any of you guys got those vibes from Paul's testimony, but by a show of hands, who was in the chat, who watched his testimony or reviewed his testimony, he kept looking over at his right, when he would make answers to when he was giving his answers to the questions from the prosecutor and the defense attorney on cross. He kept looking over there, and it was so sad to see that, because she was still mind fucking him. Basically, she was mind controlling him in that courtroom, and that's how affected this guy. And this is not me defending him or sticking up for him, because what he did was awful, and he could have said no. He could have put his foot down. He's 20 years old, but we don't know the totality of the whole situation of how much mind control she had over him. Did she sexually abuse him? Was there some type of other controlling component that we're not aware of? And this is what got me just going. But Vinny, kudos to Vinny. He asks him the tough question, and he let's listen to what he has to say about Paul, the 20-year-old son who really inflicted a lot of the instructions that was given to him by a text message.
Of his relationship with his mother, his relationship with his brother, and what's his legal status, and what is going to happen to him.
So Paul represents, something of a challenge for our office and for me in dealing with this, because on the one hand, I do hold him responsible in part for what happened here. He was, for all intents and purposes, he was the enforcer of the punishments that the defendant in this case wanted to hand down, and all of those punishments combined are what were the basis of the first-degree child abuse charge, and ultimately he was a participant in the malnourishment, which is the cause of death and the basis for the murder charge. So I do hold him responsible for that, but I can't lose sight of the fact that I'm also dealing with a man who, certainly does appear to have some special needs of his own. I've had an opportunity to meet with Paul several times in anticipation of him testifying, and I very genuinely got the impression that he feels genuine remorse for this, as he should. I'm not suggesting he shouldn't. He absolutely should. But it was clear from those meetings, and it was even clear from watching his his testimony in court, that he would constantly look over towards the defendant as I don't know if looking for some type of approval or looking to see if she was going to have a reaction. I'm told there was a very strong reaction that he had at one point during his testimony when he talked about that photograph that he took and sent it to her a few weeks before Timothy passed away, that he actually gave him a full meal that day. That he looked over to see what her reaction would be to that, and I'm told she had quite the reaction to that because it was the first time that she had heard that because her response in the text message was give him a piece of bread, but he actually ended up giving her a full meal. So we have to balance out that it's sort of balancing.
So as you can see, he just said what I was saying when he was saying that he was, going against the mother. He kept looking at her in the court and glancing over to her, and that's the sad part. And this district attorney, Matt Roberts, said that he feels that he has some type of, he may be suffering himself from some type of, disorder or something, and that he wasn't quite right. And living with that demonic monster, that evil, sick monster, it's enough to do severe damage to anybody, nonetheless a young adult like Paul's 20 years old.
Out the good with the bad, and I've committed to Paul and to his attorney that if and only if he chooses to plead guilty to the first degree child abuse charge, that I will make sure that I represent to the judge how he was instrumental and how he was helpful to us in order to achieve this conviction. But it doesn't forgive the bad, and he's been quite open and honest and said he's not necessarily looking for forgiveness. He's hoping for some mercy, but I think he's prepared to accept what is coming to him. In terms of his actual legal status, I believe next week we are having a status conference, and it will be up to him and his attorney at that point to decide if they want to enter a plea or if they want to take the case to trial.
So he may plead guilty. He may plead guilty and not have a trial. And that's what he alluded to there. Sentencing for this monster, Shanda, is January 29th, 2024. So that's what we're looking at, sentencing January 29th. All right, listen, I promised you I would play this is a channel that reviews hot sauce. So this is two adult men who are in good health that review hot sauce. And let me tell you, it's tough to look at this because when I watched this, I didn't watch for them, the reactions of them. I watched because I was thinking of Timothy, this poor, malnutritioned, young teenager being forced to ingest this stuff. She said in court he loved hot sauce. I don't believe a word. I don't believe a bit of what Shanda said in court. She's a piece of garbage. So this is a review of the exact hot sauce. Now let me just go to the lieutenant in court because he reads the label of this hot sauce. So I'm going to let this play because they brought him on the stand on day 3. And this is the lieutenant from the police department over there. And he in Norton Shores, Michigan, he gets up on the stand and he's asked by district attorney to read the bottle. And then I'll play you the review.
Spelling your first name and last name.
Lieutenant Joel Hoeksema, JoelHoekesema.
Lieutenant, I want to let's just start off with you brought People's Exhibit number 34 up to the
It's right here,
or up to the witness stand with you there. That's the bottle of hot sauce. And you actually sees 2 of the same type of hot sauce from the residence. Is that correct?
That's correct.
He sees 2 bottles of this.
And you heard the testimony yesterday from Ms. Vander Ark where she indicated that there was some discussion about ordering the hot sauce from Amazon because you couldn't find hot sauce she couldn't find hot sauce that Timothy didn't like or something to that effect in Myers. Do you recall that?
I do.
Could you go ahead and read for the jury the label there for that hot sauce?
Elijah's extreme regret is screaming super hot. It packs the fire of the two hottest peppers in the world, the Trinidad Scorpion and Carolina Reaper peppers. Your tongue will burn from the sting of the scorpion. Your eyes will tear up as sweat pours off your head. Your throat feels the burn of the Carolina Reaper going down. The pain becomes unbearable, and you feel like you just ate a burning hot coal. That's when you realize extreme regret, not for wimpy hot sauce lovers. Use with caution or you'll regret it.
You feel like you ate a hot coal, is what he just read off of that label.
Okay. Now, did you also hear the testimony yesterday from Ms. Vander Ark in regards to two videos that were actually obtained as part of the investigation?
Okay. Again, I want to just tell you that, you know, this may be difficult to watch this, because now you're going to see two grown adults who review hot sauce, and I'm going to cue it up to the spot where they're actually taking it, because they're making like kind of jokes with each other about it. And they have it in a teaspoon. I'm going to link their channel down below. Let me just get it. It's called Brian Ambs. Brian Ambs. He's got a YouTube channel. Let me get this in 4K. Hold on. 1080p. So here we go. I'm going to play this. This is them ingesting just 1 teaspoon. And actually, one of the teaspoons to the left here, I'm going to put it on the screen. This guy on the left, if you're looking at the screen, he doesn't have a lot in here, but this guy has a full teaspoon of that very same hot sauce. And it says, the video says, the hottest sauce I've ever had. Elijah's Extreme Regret Reserve. All right, here we go. Let's take a listen.
Here, all that's peppers.
Oh, I know, man. Dude, there's like separation happening in it from just sitting in the spoon of just like pepper oils. It is so angry.
I'm so glad there's no extract, though.
I know.
I'm so glad.
It's.
You just smelled it.
I do this for you. I love you guys. Cheers. Oh my God.
That's 1 teaspoon.
It tastes good. I just swallowed again. Holy crap.
It's so hot.
The top of my throat is on fire. Dude, my teeth are hot.
My lips. My whole mouth. I have the hiccups already.
And let me add also, these guys are experts. They do this. They do this all the time. They review all these hot sauces. You see them on the shelves behind them. Their whole channel, I mean, this guy's got close to 200,000 subscribers. There's his YouTube plaque up in the corner right here. And again, I'll link it in the description. But they do this. This is like a thing. People review hot sauce. One of my good friends on here, hot sauce junkie Tim, he reviews hot sauces, but he didn't review this one. Otherwise, I would have played his video. But these guys just ingested. One guy, the guy on the left here with his finger up to his face, had just a dash of it on a teaspoon. But the guy to the right here that has the Revive t-shirt, he had this thing was full. And this is what's happening to them.
The chaplet feeling.
Oh, it's rising.
My eyes are watering.
You have the hiccups?
I think I'm...
It's coming out of my nose. Like my nose wants to start running and the snot in my right nostril is really hot.
You can almost feel the spread in your mouth of the heat, like spreading. I get that, like, that panic, that feeling of like impending doom.
Did anybody pick up on what he just said? I get the panic of impending doom. So this is what she fed Timothy Ferguson on a regular basis, on bread. And in her testimony, in the text messages that were read, she said, don't be what did she say? Don't be sparing with it. Make sure you put a lot of it on. Words to that effect is she was instructing Paul to use a lot of this stuff. And this just goes on to get worse. These guys, it just gets worse with the time. And you imagine giving this to him in the condition that he was in. He was not being fed. He was underweight, 69 pounds when he was found dead.
Dude, I don't even know. I don't even want to know how you feel right now, Brian. Holy crap. The backs of my teeth are hot. I'm salivating. There it is. There it is. Oh, that was a mistake.
You said that was a mistake.
My body temperature is rising.
It's peaked. And I'm coming back down the other side now.
All right. I guess you guys got the idea. This is part of what I needed to see for myself. And it is horrific torture. She freaking tortured this kid. It makes me want to cry. I'm telling you, I don't think I can go any further here. Listen, guys. So this is, again, an example of what type of demonic monster Shanda Vander Ark was. She deserves to rot inside her cage. And I hope she has not one good day. I hope she has not one good day in prison. And that she too gets to have pain inflicted upon her inside those walls in the prison wherever she is. Man, what a freaking evil person. Guys, this concludes my coverage of the verdict. Sentencing January 29th. District Attorney Matt Roberts and his staff did a heck of a job. Justice was served swiftly and rightfully so onto this woman, this vicious, evil monster. And I want to thank everyone for being here. Tomorrow at about noon, I'm going to be out in Staten Island visiting with Ed Wallace. We're going to be doing our little bit of a Christmas gathering and get together. We'll go live publicly from the location, and we'll also maybe do a members only as well. So if you're not yet subscribed, please consider subscribing here, hitting the thumbs up if you can for me right now. I'd appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this coverage, even though it's monstrous. These people are, there's more out there. Unfortunately, there's more people out there doing not exactly this, but maybe things that are even worse that we don't even know about. So if you see something, say something. Keep your eyes open. Make sure if you see something that doesn't seem right, that you report it. Don't just turn your head. All right, guys. On behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, we want to wish you a great weekend. Christmas is coming. And again, we're going to try to spread some Christmas joy tomorrow at about 12 noon Eastern. So look for that live stream. I will talk to you soon. Peace and love from Crime Time with DutyRon. Share this video, like it, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace and love.